All right, hello everyone, and welcome to yet another week of Theorycraft Thursday, aka Theorycrafting Thursday, aka Carl and Scylla in the morning. For any of you community fans, I'm sitting here with my co-host Proud. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Good.
How's your week in Dota been since our last recording?
It's been a little mixed. I had some inspiration to start doing Lone Druid mid again, and yesterday I lost a few games, but I won each one where I got to play Lone Druid mid, so I'm pretty hype on that.
Yeah, I mean that'll boost some confidence, I'm sure. If you only lose the games, you don't get to play what you want to play.
Yeah, it means if I get to play Lone Druid against a Shadow Fiend mid, you win, which is really fun.
That's definitely not a matchup I've played. Granted, like a Lone Druid just in general is not a hero I see often unless like he's on my team because I'm playing with you. But it's a weird matchup. I imagine he does, not to get off on a Lone Druid tangent, but I imagine he does well versus a lot of mids. But
some yes, some no. The one thing about Shadow Fiend is if you shut him down early, it's kind of hard for him to get that ball rolling with the souls. And Lone Druid has 50 damage on the hero, 30 on the bear. With my build, you get Blade of Attack and Branch as well. So you've got like a 30, 35 damage advantage on Shadow Fiend. So if you just like get 3 denies and 4 last hits on the first wave, then you come out really, really far ahead.
Oh yeah, there are quite a few mids like that are like really. Either the ones that are like rushing a bottle and they really need their like first 2 waves are super important. Yeah. Shadow Fiend, I think, probably is the best example of that. Lena might be another one where she just like consumes a ton of mana. But anyway, that's not what we're going to be talking. That's not what we're going to be talking about this week.
Fortunately,
that's how you speak English. Yeah. Fortunately, not. Although maybe we could do some week, not to openly plan on the podcast, but we could do some like 1v1 matchups and talk about that. But that is a different idea. Today, however, we're going to be talking about Slardar Dazzle. That's going to be our lane. Slardar, it's a really popular hero. I'm sure if you see pub games, you see him every once in a while, but if you see pro games, you see him constantly. I know I have. He's like, Secret's been like first picking him, right?
Yeah, I think so. And in the games that I've been playing with CSL, he's been definitely either first phase banned or picked by a lot of teams.
Yeah, and he offers a lot, and his strengths are one of the big reasons we're talking about him today. Definitely, I mean, we like to talk about topical heroes. Previously we've done things like Bloodseeker Lesh and, everything topical. Nobody wants to talk about the heroes that nobody plays. Although, granted, we did talk about Oracle last week.
Basically we talk about Lone Druid and Invokers, so let's hold up on that claim a little bit.
Boy, someday we should just play that as a lane. All right. Anyway, so Slardar Dazzle's our lane for today. And Slardar, I mean, he's not exactly like a complicated hero. Like, again, going to last week, we played Oracle, and Oracle requires a lot of explanation. But Slardar, he's relatively simple. He has like very clear strengths, and
the names of his skills literally just describe what they do. He's a really kind hero if you're not really sure about all the intricacies.
Yeah, so I mean, you're right. What is it? It's just Crush, Greater
Crush
Bash?
Is, who knows what a Crush is? Maybe it stuns, maybe it doesn't. But like Sprint, it sprints. Bash, it bashes. Amplify damage. Guess what that does to your damage?
Amplifies it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, he's a really popular hero for a good reason. What are his strengths right now? Like, why is he such a top tier pick? I mean, we saw him get buffed last patch, right?
So the way that the meta is going right now is it's just a lot of fighting nonstop, a lot of ganking. Bounty Hunter, even though Bounty Hunter got nerfed, is still relevant because of how often these fights occur. It's a lot of like skirmishing, and you have four fighting, 1 farming, that kind of thing at different points of the game. And Slardar is one of those nice tanky heroes who wants to fight all the time. And kind of the new tech that people brought around is just playing him as an offlaner. There's a trend right now where you give your offlaner some support in the first couple minutes just to make sure he doesn't get totally shit on.
Yeah.
And gets a nice start. So Slardar, but one of his weaknesses is he doesn't have like a good escape like Cogs, or like even Queen of Pain with her blink. She's every so often, or Spirit Breaker, sprint away, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. He really just has sprint, and that makes you go faster, but also makes you take more damage. So he does need a little bit of help early on because he has no real comeback. He can't jungle or anything. So having a hero, in our case like Dazzle, that can hang out and like do some nice 600 range, effective right clicks to ensure that Slardar gets a little bit of space, then he can get in there, get a little bit of an advantage. And as long as he can make it to that blink dagger His stun has what the lowest cooldown spell, or the highest cooldown that he has to work with is his sprint of 17 seconds, and beyond that is just his blink. Is really like if he has his blink up, he can initiate on you, which is super super powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really like that's the classic Slardar move too. Like, I mean, there are plenty of like blink heroes that we think of. You know, your Tide Hunters, your Magnuses, but Slardar is definitely one of those heroes where like blink is an absolute necessity, which seems like almost counterintuitive to like a newer player if you're not thinking deeply about the hero because you think like, oh well, he has sprint, so like why would he need something to clear space? But I mean, definitely you need that to come in because, like you said, sprint makes you take what is it, like 30% extra damage. I think they changed it. It
It's
used to
only
be
15,
more.
but
Oh, I
yeah,
think it used to be 30.
15% more damage. But still, I mean, if you get, if you're running at a line and he's got Finger of Death up, all he
Oh
has
yeah,
to do is like press R and click on you, and you're taking
yeah,
a lot of damage.
yeah. That's for sure. So I mean, that's kind of we went over like in a general sense what you're going to do item wise. You know, blink is the priority, but what do you think like otherwise are you going to supplement the hero with? I know like obviously this is going to be contingent on the game, but like
The main decision between Slardar, because Slardar used to be run as a carry for obvious reasons. He has physical damage, amplification, and his auto attack stun. So he scales with attack speed,
mhm.
and he just scales with physical damage and that kind of thing. So people used to run him as a carry, and you get power treads every game on him. But now as an offlaner, where he really needs to get that blink dagger as fast as possible, he can't be spending a bunch of money on getting his health up. He's going to want to roam, so. You can't be buying like lifesteal and stuff or like an armlet on him or anything. So a lot of people have started going tranquil boots now, which I think is really good.
Mhm.
Tranquil boots, what's kind of unique about them is the fact that they give more move speed than almost any other boot. The unbroken tranquil boots, I think I have here. Once you get even level 3 sprint, you're hitting max move speed with your tranquil boots unbroken. So it makes them
Oh
really really good at roaming. And then even when they're broken, once you get level 4 sprint, you hit max move speed. So he can move around a lot. He gets some armor, which is nice because he wants to be in the thick of it. And it gives him that regen, so he can just be roaming around the map. Because his mana costs aren't that crazy either. So you have Tranquil
yeah.
Boots, passive regen. You're kind of set. You can just be on the map at all times, making shit happen.
Yeah, I mean we've seen this with other heroes that have been popular this patch and last patch. Like Tusk comes to mind or Undying, although Undying a little less so because he has to fight around Tombstone cooldown. But Tusk is really the prime example I think of this dynamic of just constantly fighting. And he can rotate a lot. He can do a lot of things. So I think Slardar is I wouldn't say he's the new Tusk, but he offers a lot of the similar things, and that's really a meta
Yeah.
defining. You know, people always talk about how in Dota heroes are popular because of the meta, and whereas in other games like League, the meta decides what heroes are popular. I think I reversed that.
Maybe the strong heroes decide the meta,
Yes,
and then in
exactly.
Dota it's more like the meta kind of develops, and then afterwards there's a lot of opportunities. Since Dota heroes are all so different, maybe not all, but most of them have a really unique niche,
Yeah,
and so these other ones can go in pretty easily. So Slardar is definitely a relic of that. And maybe as a hero he's not super super strong, but given the context of these games that he's being put into, it just kind of like fits him really well. Kind of
yeah,
like Gyro.
yeah. Gyro, another perfect example. Like he just fights constantly, cooldowns always up, stuff like that. Or Windrunner. We could go on with the examples. You just list all the popular heroes, Quap, stuff like that. Are you a Mango devotee? This is, I know, like I don't play a ton of Slardar, but I've tinkered around with him for a few games because he's so popular. To decent success,
I've
but
been really against the mango, but I'm starting to be a convert.
it
I
is.
think Slardar is probably a hero that I would take it on. I
Yeah.
was always a big Clarity fan, just the fact that like I don't know if you have a Clarity running for like 10 seconds, you could buy 3 Clarities that only run for 10 seconds, and that's as much of as a mango.
Yeah.
But the passive regen is really good. They're just so expensive, but at the same time, I don't know. I think one mango is probably good to get on Slardar starting out if you're offlaning him.
Yeah, see, I'm the exact same way actually. Like when it came out, I was like, I don't really value it that highly, and then they buffed it because they made it cost 25 less gold, which it's not that much in the grand scheme of things, but in the early game, that's like a big difference. Um, and I've recently learned the way of the mango, and I've been picking up on a few heroes, and Slardar is definitely one of them. I know like Chaos Knight is the other one. He's probably the one that I noticed the biggest difference on. Granted, I had a terrible game on that hero. I'm not a Chaos Knight player at all. And Timbersaw is another one. Like any of those heroes that don't have the best mana pools or like really
Centaur.
benefit. Centaur,
Absolutely, that guy.
exactly. Well, I mean, that's why like Centaur. Well, that's one of the big reasons he's not picked at all in pros and even in pub
One
games. People
stun,
don't
he's out
like
of
him.
mana.
Yeah, exactly. He has like no mana,
Get a
and
mango though. You got plenty of mana. Easy.
yeah, all you gotta do is spend money to be able to play the hero.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, I think that's the gist of Slardar. So Dazzle, I mean, the second 50% of our combination. Dazzle's a hero I play a lot. I'm a big fan of Dazzle. Obviously, you know, the healing is good for the off lane, but the real synergy that comes between Dazzle and Slardar is just tons and tons of minus armor and physical damage on top of minus armor because both heroes are their toolkit is based around physical damage and minus armor. So we have Dazzle has Weave, and then his spells all do physical damage. Shadow Wave does physical damage despite being magic, and then Poison Touch, of course, also does physical damage. So these are two abilities that are going to benefit. A, they benefit from Weave, and then B, once you're also 6, or I imagine you'll be hitting 6 before me, but your amplified damage is going to reduce the armor. And not only is it going to benefit, of course, your abilities because you're also balanced around minus armor, but it benefits mine. And when you combine the two, it has some obscene capabilities, I think. And hopefully we get to that point. I think we're pretty confident in this combo, right? Do you play much Slardar? I know I play a ton of Dazzle. That's like one of my
I
heroes.
I used to play him a little bit when he was like kind of like a good one, and you just played super fighty, and I lost a lot of competitive games on him until I really figured it out. And now my Slardar is pretty good, but I haven't really tried this new offlane stuff, so it's gonna be a little new for me. But I've offlaned some other heroes this patch, so I'm sure I can get used to it.
Yeah, I'm always hesitant. Offlane, I feel like, is a position where, on one level, offlane gives you a lot of possibilities to like Slasher, who we kind of were talking about before the show. Even Slasher, he's famous for Slasher way builds that are generally offlanes, and he has always said something to the effect of offlane. You can tinker around with the most because a you're either alone or at worst in a duo lane, or I shouldn't say at worst, but you're never like tri laning in the this is a really bad example, but basically the idea is he's saying that you can experiment a lot with the offlane because there's a lot of potential, and so I'm always hesitant to try stuff like Slardar offlane that are not as like orthodox offlaners, I guess you'd say. Like you have your stereotypical offlaners like Centaur or Broodmother or Timbersaw, stuff like that. So I've played a few offlane Slardar games, but it's not something I've delved into. Other offlaners, like even offlane Night Stalker, I've not played around with that much because he does not like. I'm not as safe feeling with him. Like he doesn't have a blink, he doesn't have Timber Chain, he doesn't have like clear.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of offlaners that your team kind of has to have a very pub offlaners. You can kind of exploit the fact that the enemy team isn't going to be organized. They might have a jungler, and it's super easy. But then if you think about like if you do play against a coordinated team and you offlane a Night Stalker and they zone you, like what do? You don't go to jungle. You don't like. I mean, you could roam, I guess, but like I don't know. It's pretty rough.
Yeah, even Batrider had this treatment recently where like he was the offlaner, and the reason he was such a good offlaner, and this is like a good few patches ago, more than a few even, where it was because he could just go into the jungle and take stacks or just take independent camps. But then they nerfed that, and so it was like, oh well, Batrider pretty garbage now. And so I think
that was kind of like why they changed the current pole camp used to be a medium camp, but now it's a small camp, and it was because it was just so good to do that, and so it was so hard to offlane because people would just pull 100% of the time. So you'd have like Alliance would pick Batrider, and he would just start out jungling, and you wouldn't even try to offlane. You would just play like 3 safe laners and a jungler and a mid, and just not even care about that lane. It was absurd.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of stuff, but yes, I mean, I think we mostly went over the combo. Are there any like other comments you're thinking about? I know, like,
yeah, I would like to say a little bit about the heroes together. Normally, when you think like minus armor strat, it's just like, oh, load a bunch of minus armor. Whoa, it's crazy. It all works off each other. But the thing with Slardar and Dazzle is like as soon as amp damage gets in there, you don't really have to wait for Dazzle's minus armor to get in as well. Like you don't have to weave someone and wait 30 seconds. if you get like, let's say a hero has 5 armor and you get level 1 amp damage on him, he goes to -5, and that's about a 25% damage increase. So even if you don't have a creep wave, the Dazzle heal bomb is so strong. So you have level 2 Shadow Wave, 100 damage per unit. You have Slardar crushes and Dazzle just waddles over. And if they both get the damage on him, that's 250 damage. Like just
right off the bat.
Basically pure damage at that point, because you're not counting the armor anymore, because you're factoring in the 25% modification. So like 250 damage at like maybe the 7-minute mark is like really crazy.
Yeah, I definitely, that's the thing. And thinking Dazzle specifically, Dazzle has a lot of different skill builds. Generally, what I do when I'm in pub games, he's one of my go-to pub heroes, is I do like a 1-1-1 build at level 3, but or other times I'll do a 0-1-2. But in this lane, since we're being so aggressive, hopefully, I mean, it depends on our matchup, of course. I think Poison Touch, which oftentimes is a low priority skill for people. Personally, I prioritize it a little higher than most people. But now in this lane, of course, Poison Touch is going to be a huge asset to us. So that is going to be a small variation you'll see in my Dazzle game. And also, I think I would advise it if you're going to be running this lane, if you're playing Dazzle. I think Poison Touch is higher priority in a lane like this than it would be if you were not laning something quite so aggressive and minus armor based. So what are like we've gone over the strengths of this combo, and they're not exactly complicated. But so what would our weaknesses be? Like off the top of your head, I know the first one that comes to my mind would be something with like quick escapes, like a blink, for instance, like an anti-mage, let's say, because like we're based on like chasing people down, locking them down, because Poison Touch slow, Slardar crush, and then we finish them off by just chasing them down.
Any real good lane fighters, like of course Gyro is always really any off laner is like, well, my counter is Gyrocopter, because if I try to do anything, he'll press Q and I'll die. So if we're running at a Gyro and he presses Q right before I stun him, we're going to be taking a lot of damage. Any kind of like AoE stun, like Gyro Lion, I think would be like our Doomsday kind of situation where because for Shadow Wave you want to group up and then get the heal bomb. If you're you heal someone, the people around whoever gets healed take damage, so you want to like sandwich like 5 guys around someone and then you heal them all and then they take like 500 damage, something crazy like that. So like if we all group up on Gyro and stun him and heal bomb him, and then Lion does Earth Spike and we get shot up and we all take damage and Gyro can just walk away, then we'll look really stupid and probably lose. So AoE stuns are definitely something to watch out for. Really good lane presence, like 2 ranged heroes, 3 ranged heroes. Yeah, I
think ranged heroes, like just during this conversation, even I was thinking like a Drow would be annoying, because later on in the game, once you have your blink, like you're really good against Drow because you blink on her, you take her plus agility away. But during the lane phase, like we'd be trying to dive her and then she just gust us away. But then again, like Drow is pretty susceptible to harass because you can only do one thing or the other. So if I could angle on her and harass her at the same time,
and then you get a sprint in, fast boots on Slardar.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely dynamic. If we can get our mitts around someone's neck, they're pretty dead. But outside of that, there's definitely room for counterplay.
Yeah, that's the dream. But I think like one of the other key things, and we talk about this with other combos, but one of the key aspects that we have to our benefit is that we have a lot of ability to vary our combo with the Slardar Dazzle. Like we can address different combos with different methods. Like you could, if things are going really well, you could go treads. If things are not going well, you could go.
I was actually thinking, since we're like doing a lot more of a committal with the dual laning the Slardar, instead of just like help him out, then he's on his own, get triangle boots. Maybe if I have a little more gold intake, it wouldn't be too bad to stay with like brown boots, get blink, and then go on to treads and go from there.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's the gist of it, and hopefully it all goes well. Do you have any closing thoughts before we jump into our game?
Hell no.
All right, good. Sounds like it. All right, well, we'll see you guys after the interlude. All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the second portion of Theorycraft Thursday, aka Games. And we just got out of our game. We're battered and bruised. I suppose those are the terms I'd used. Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. It was like, you said it proud.
The game was bad. We did pretty good. I'm gonna be honest.
We tried.
Yeah, I mean, I was 2-4. I'm just saying.
I was 0-7 and 3 though. And considering how many kills our
It's
team actually got,
it's
3
the
assists is
three.
pretty
Yeah, it's
monumental.
that's pretty big kill participation for the guy who dies every fight.
Yeah, it was. So I mean, it was. I mean, you said it. It was as bad as like a game can get. And I think I said it in the VOD, which if you watch it, you'll know. It's like I say all the time that people have this like view of like higher brackets of MMR, like, oh, I can't wait till I get to like 4K, or I can't wait till I get to 3K or whatever. And they're like, oh, everybody takes it so much more seriously because they're all better at the game. This game is like a testament to that attitude being so wrong. Like our game was absolute garb. Like not only did everybody like not do well, but like everybody was flaming each other and yelling. And then OD was like, "Yo, I'm gonna intentionally feed," and the Alk was like, "Yo, I was gonna support, but now that you picked LC, I'm just gonna feed," and it was just freaking awful. It was ugh. So yeah, I mean that was that. Um,
Yeah,
so I mean, I guess I'll just go over the teams real quick. It was the enemy team was Phantom Lancer, Skywrath Mage, Wraith King, Tiny Omni Knight. It was duo lane bottom PL Omni, duo lane top Skywrath Wraith, and then mid Tiny. And then our team again, we had a solo top Alchemist, jungle Legion Commander, solo mid Outworld Devourer, and then us, of course, we were Slardar Dazzle in the off lane, and we fared okay. I think we did pretty well, all things considered. I got first blooded, but that was, I would say, it's mostly my mistake, and I misjudged how fast Omni Knight was, and he just kind of ran me down. Um, and Dazzle is not a tanky hero, and I was level 2, so I didn't have Shallow Grave yet, because we were trying to be aggressive, so I picked up Poison Touch, which was probably a mistake, all things considered.
it
Um,
was a tough lane to be aggressive on. If Omni Knight presses W, I can't stun. If PL presses W, your poison touch is going to get disjointed. It's pretty hard to go against PL Omni Knight.
yeah,
It's that we definitely had an advantage as far as passive farming goes. I think maybe we should have played that a little more aggressively. I felt like we were kind of back a little more than we should have been.
yeah,
But like between passive farming, like I out farmed PL for most of the game, and when your off lane is out farming their safe lane, that's always good. But you're kind of hoping for a little bit more than that.
yeah. I think like we kind of said it. Like we did fine. Like you had good farm. I got first blooded, but after that, like it was just like we were just trading farm. We were pretty aggressive on the PL. We got some damage done. We cost him a lot of farm. The lane was hectic. Eventually, Omni Knight started rotating, and then here's where like we really saw our other lanes just like fail miserably. Top lane was just feeding out of his mind. He ended the game 1-7, but like in the first 10 minutes, I think he was 0-5, and it was just like catastrophic. And no matter how well we were doing, it wasn't like the effectiveness of the opposing duo lane. And eventually, trying, I think Omni and I sat up there for a while, and it
Yeah,
was
he kind
just
of
like,
rotated after a while. Seemed like.
it's just one of those games that like it falls apart. Like I started rationalizing during the picks. The team was already kind of like splintering, and the Alk was like, "I'm gonna support," and then a Legion freaked out, and he was like, "Yo, Alk's not a support," and then he picks a jungle and just
Which,
abandons.
to his credit, is true, but also that's what we got to deal with.
Yeah, and like it was just it was just catastrophic. Like honestly, that's like the word to describe it. Or actually, there's probably better words to describe it, but it was just really, really, really not good. Um, But I mean, focusing on the Slardar Dazzle combo, I think it went relatively fine. I think like PL was not something we talked about in our weaknesses earlier, but that's definitely like a really good matchup because even in the mid to late game, once you had your blink, he had Doppelganger to just remove your amp damage,
Yeah.
and that was and to remove my poison
And he's
touch.
naturally a Manta hero, so that's another
That too.
Manta's really like any hero that goes Manta is pretty good against amp damage. That's why it's not like the hardest counter in the world to Alchemist,
Hmm.
because as long as you catch him when he has his Manta up, he can just get away from it. But if you
Yeah.
get him when he's got his Manta down, it's pretty good. But
Yeah, that's what I've been doing when I'm going to go up against Alchemist. Is I've just been picking like VS. That's my
Yeah.
go-to because it's just
Yeah,
like I
advantage.
just pound him in the mid lane until, I mean, in the early game when you actually have your chances to even after 6, like his regen doesn't matter if he has so much minus armor. You just burst him down.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I
Yeah,
mean,
Medallion Venge, super good against Elk.
yeah, well, even just with Scream, it's pretty dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like our lane didn't really get off the ground ever. Like everything
Yeah.
kind of fell around. We were like, let's see. I'm gonna make a really bad metaphor right now. We were like a burning building where like one pillar is holding everything up,
Yeah,
and
this is pretty bad so far. Keep going.
yeah, and we were that one pillar, or maybe 2 pillars because we were 2 people. And then like everything just crumbled around us, and eventually we.
Okay, that's not too bad anymore. I think that's valid.
I pulled it all together. It's but yeah, so it was not. It
I
was
would
not a
like to
game
think
anybody
that
would play.
Alchemist was the bathroom of our burning building.
Yeah, he was like the guy that decided, like, hey, I'm gonna burn a building.
Yeah,
That's
he
how I
was.
phrase it.
No, you know what? I think that he gave Legion Commander the kindling and then told him that he was going to Alch support and this is his life now. And then Legion was like, you know what? We're going to burn it. It's not acceptable. And I think
Yeah.
that's, I can understand it. I don't like it, but I can understand it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has those games, and I mean, if he was intending to support, I mean, what a nice guy, because support players are hard to find. But then it just like a combination of people. I mean, everybody has those games where like your team is just toxic, and that's just how Dota is, and that's why Dota gets a bad rap. But it's just one of those games where like you reflect and you think like, boy, I could have done so many different things with 29 minutes of my night. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're all masochists, and that's why we play Dota. Am I right? That's the conclusion I've come to from this game. Not to go off on some weird philosophical tangent, slasher style, but I feel like Dota is like just such a punishing game, and I've had a recently like a pretty good run of games, but this was not the game. I feel like I had this coming. It was karmic. I needed this loss.
I just like thinking about cool shit. I like feeling good, man. I don't
Yeah.
want this.
Yeah, I don't know what we did to deserve this game, but Theorycrafting clearly. I mean, we were 2-0 until now, so now we're 2-1.
Yeah, we gotta lose eventually.
Exactly. I mean, like we got our loss out of the way, and it was brutal. So I'm thinking like, hey, we probably deserve a couple more wins.
When I was playing a lot of StarCraft, I always like whenever I looked at like a build that I wanted to play, I'd always see it win, and I was like, okay, this doesn't like I'm losing with this build. I don't need to see it go perfectly. I need to see how like people deal with disaster. So if you want to watch a game where people deal with disaster, we kind of make it a little bit. I scream at some people to get some kills, and we get some kills. And like it kind of almost works, but the Alchemist finishes his like 27-minute Radiance and then AFKs in the jungle. So like. Those like you can win those games. I had a game on PA earlier where it was just, oh my god, the game was so fucking bad. Like we were against what, a 20 kill Ursa, a 26 kill Ember Spirit, and like a Sand King and a fucking Spirit Breaker and shit. And like I'm on PA and I'm 5-11, but like the team rallies and we win.
Yep.
So those games you can win. I remember you guys were talking earlier on Twitter, or no, it was something on the Dota 2 Reddit where they're just like, how sometimes you just lose against a 5-carry team, and it just happens, and like that happens. So that game looked really shitty, but it never was really decided.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very like valuable point in that like there's no point where you should ever just be like, this game's just over. Like, just like sit in base and lose. Like the OD on our team did, for instance, and he started microing the courier so that Alk couldn't get his Radiance. Which, for context, Alk got his Radiance later by like a good 5 minutes later than the enemy Wraith King got his Radiance and his Blade Mail and his Treads. So, I mean, that's like how the game was going. But it's definitely like Dota is a game that can go both ways. And if you take like even nowadays, like the comeback mechanics are pretty real, but they're not nearly as real as they used to be in like some other patches. But like you take 1 or 2 good team fights in a row, like a game, even if you're down a racks at 20 minutes, like that's kind of stuff is surmountable. It's harder, and of course, realistically, it's not going to happen every time. But like, there's always a way to get back in the game. I would say very rarely do games exist where it's just like this. There's absolutely no chance we have. And this game's just over, like, GG, we quit. So, I mean, that's one way to think of it.
If you're down a huge goal deficit, your best chance of coming back is giving up and then deciding to not give up all of a sudden. Just saying.
Yeah, that's That's very true. That's like when people next level you and they're like, "Yo, just push. Like game's over. Just push. Take racks. We're not going to defend."
And
And
then
then
you
they
like five
defend.
man wipe because they're all
Yeah,
grouped up for a 5-man RP, and you're like, huh, you know what? Maybe we can win this game, huh?
yeah. They're all smoked, and they're like, "Oh well, I mean, we may as well play." It's like, wow, okay. And that's why like you got to be that jerk and just try hard and rice and be like, "Yo, we need Aegis and Cheese, even though they are mega'd. We need Aegis and Cheese to push. I don't care if they're all dead and they don't have buybacks and we do. Just gotta rice away. May be assured. I'm guilty of that, especially my Naga games. Boy, I'll just drag games out just for the fun of it, just because I like farming. But I mean, that's just me, and that's why I don't play as many Naga games because it's rude to everybody else. Because I could just play bot games and farm on that hero for like hours, and I'd have a good time. But
Certain heroes like first picking AM or Naga, I'm just like, am I like, do I really want to make this game all about me and make these fuckers just like sit around and watch how cool I am?
yeah,
I
and
just can't.
I mean, granted, there are those games where you do that kind of like I'm just gonna farm for a year style, and then you lose because like you just farm for too long. So I mean,
Yeah.
Dota's all about a careful balance of stuff like that. And I mean, we didn't have one of those comeback stories this game.
No, we absolutely did not.
Yeah,
That was definitely not what happened.
yeah, we like no, there was no comebacks yet. I think we got like a pick off.
We got like two. We killed Tiny. We killed PL like twice, and then while we were getting raxed, I almost solo killed PL, but then Alchemist finally pulled his head out of his ass and like walked to give me some Radiance Burn, and then Legion came as well, and then we killed him.
Yeah, it only took like 3 views. I was also heading up there.
Right.
It
I
was
was just saying, there were a couple exchanges where we killed someone and got like 1,000 gold and didn't lose anything.
yeah. I think this was kind of like a mentality game more than anything. Like I feel like our teammates gave up. Like Alchemist just did not like he just like shut down completely. He like sat in a corner and farmed and just fed. On like he alternated between the two. And but like our team just kind of gave up and they had that mentality of like this game's over, just like GG go next. Whereas
Yeah,
like
they had that. Yeah, I mean,
it
people were saying
wasn't
to give up at like 10 minutes, so
yeah. And
these
like
things happen.
that those things do happen. I think that's the crux of it. Dota is not like a pleasant game. And I think that's the nature of a team game, right? Is that just realistically, like when you combine 5 people, if like one guy sets off the other guy and the next guy sets off another guy, and like by the end of the game, like I luckily, if this was solo queue, I probably honestly would have been joining in on the flaming, and I would have just been frustrated. But I'm a good-natured duo queue person, so I did not do that, and I didn't mute anybody for posterity's sake for the VOD, because I wanted you people, you listeners, to get the full experience of that thing you're striving for.
Yeah, I've never been rude or made a mistake in my life, so that's probably just you on that side.
Yeah, it does happen. It does happen. Mistakes are very few, but I've been known to be decently salty in my solo queue games, and that's a big reason why I know better than to play a lot of solo queue. Also, I mean, I've said this before in other podcasts, but like when I first was climbing to 4K, my method was just to mute everybody. Like the second game started, because I was just, I just sat down and I was like, right, I'm just gonna play my hero. I'm gonna play my own game. I'm gonna do my best. And if that's not enough, okay, oh well, I will like go next game.
Yeah,
But
there's that mute all chat check mark. Turns out a lot of people don't know that doesn't mute all chat as in like chat that goes to everyone. That mutes literally every chat thing that is ever going to come up.
yep, I did it manually because I didn't know that existed. So nowadays I get into games all the time with people already muted. And I don't know if I muted them. I also mute people frequently, just like anyway. I have like a 1 strike rule, unless I'm supporting, and then I give them like 3 strikes. But nowadays I just like get into games and I can't tell if I have people muted because they're a huge jerk or because like I just so happen to play with them. Because mutes stay until you take them off. Like it's not like they're
Yeah,
timed
well,
out.
that used to be the way to dodge is you mute people that you never want to play with again. Then you get into a game, you like check, you're like, oh, hey, 3 people on this team are muted. I'm going to get out of here. But you can't do that anymore, which is super sad.
Yeah, I didn't. I never thought of that. That. I mean, nowadays it doesn't matter if I thought of that because you can't do it. But that's interesting.
Yeah, it was great. Had a
I've
lot of much more pleasant games that way.
I remember when I was watching the qualifiers for the fall major, the open qualifiers. There were a couple casters I was watching, and like they would go into like the tab screen and like to start announcing the teams, and they would already have people muted and be like, oh, I remember Mott Pax was or no, it was just Mott. He had some like Peruvian guy from a Peruvian team, and he was like, and they hunted down the exact game that he muted him in. It was really funny, but that's like that's
That's
a
great.
huge tangent. But
Yeah.
muting people is
Meeting
a
people's great. Just
yeah,
do it. There's
just
so many times I'm in a game and two people are yelling at each other, and I'll just like, like just mute each other. Like, please just mute each other. Like, it's for the best if you guys just don't interact,
yeah,
and that normally helps the game a lot if they actually do it. And they're not just like, no man, he's an idiot and he needs to know it now. But
yeah.
like outside of that, it's always good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I understand the mentality because I mean, I'm guilty of it just like most of us are, but it's very cathartic to like take out your frustrations on your teammates that you're probably never going to see again. But it's definitely not productive for the game. And another like method again, the word like super off tangent, but I think this is a productive conversation. Um, a method that I use is like I will mute somebody and then like unmute them like 5 minutes later because like
Yeah,
you give
that's
them time
valid.
to cool off. Or again, like if I'm supporting, I don't mute people as much because
Or
like
if you see
then
like
it matters a lot more.
someone's having a one-sided conversation that seems kind of important, like, hey, I would like to go do roast right now, can you help blank, and then you don't know if that, like, you should probably just unmute him for half a second.
Yeah, I wish you could mute people, but not mute their chat wheel. Which like that wouldn't apply to everybody because a lot of people don't use their chat wheel. But I think that would be
Yeah.
nice. But I mean, this is this
So
is more of
Dazzle
it.
Slardar,
Yeah.
anything you learned from our game?
I wouldn't pick it against a PL. Granted, we first picked. This was ranked, of course. So you first picked Slardar, and then I second picked Dazzle.
Yeah.
And I think it was third picked OD, fourth pick
Yeah.
Alk, fifth pick LC.
Feels
But
not great to go against for it for sure.
yeah, I would add him to the list of like the worst people to play it against.
If you dual lane off lane, you cannot support a jungler if you have a remotely greedy carry. Like
Yes.
if I was lone druid in the safe lane there, like that would be cool. If we had like a Clinks, maybe that'd be okay. But like any carry like an alchemist or a
Yeah.
fucking specter, like who do not. No junglers and aggro dual laners. That's it. Definitely puts a tax on your team to have an aggro dual lane if no one else is willing to support.
Yeah, I think like so. Think about this team if we had played it a different way. Like, let's say we were just a five like random people. I think the play would have been to just offlane Slardar and then Dazzle Alk top. But even that, I think, would have been a bit greedy. And like at the end of the day, our team still would have just like imploded because
I
of
mean-
how freaking angry those three people were.
Yeah,
But-
I don't think there's any way you kind of circumvent that. Alk also not a super great safe laner.
Yeah, Alk
Yeah,
definitely.
there's a lot of things wrong.
He's popular, but he has some key weaknesses. So yeah, I mean, in summation, like our lane went okay. Like I think this is a perfectly viable theory, but you have to know what not to do it against, and you have to randomly get teammates that are not huge jerks.
Yeah.
So that's like the trick to most lane comps.
I definitely really liked the Tranquil Zone slider. I think that was definitely the way to go.
Yeah?
I don't think I would go treads really. I mean, like I don't think you're gonna get any more farm as a solo offlaner than I was with our dual lane.
Mhm.
So I think really there's very few situations on slider where you wouldn't want to go tranquils.
Huh, okay. I know I generally go tread, so maybe I'll have to divert or convert.
Just
to
the fact
Tranquils.
that like PL was spamming lances on me and I just
Yeah.
didn't give half a shit and I wasn't like, oh man, what am I going to do about my health? Can I enter this fight? I don't have a lot of health right now. Like the fact that I don't have to worry about my health, I have a stout shield and +4 armor, so I don't need to worry about like right clicks. And like the only thing treads are really going to add for me, and you get blink like 500 gold sooner, and like
Oh,
your
that's
blink
true.
timing is your hero. Like the thing about tranquils versus other boosts is you don't just look at like, well, are tranquils better? Like they shouldn't be because they're 500 gold less. So
Yeah.
it should be like, are tranquils? I don't know.
Efficient.
Yeah, are there reasons to get tranquils? And the answer is normally yeah. If you're a really economic hero who just wants like move speed to not die, and I don't know, sustain. I guess.
Yeah, I think
definitely good.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing that I noticed in lane is that like you just were trading with him totally fine and just bullying him, and our lane was like our equilibrium was like a straight line practically because like I was harassing early on at least. I was harassing the Omni Knight, you were harassing the PL, and like creeps were just going everywhere. So it was definitely like the Tranquil's advantage was noticeable because you were just bullying him, and like he had like stout Aquila, and then he did the travels build, and he just could not trade with you efficiently. Like you were fast, So like you get 2 hits on him when he could only get 1 on you.
Yeah.
And then like a crush, of course, and I could be healing you and damaging him. Like,
I think the bash at level 2 would have been better as well, because we identified that we really couldn't get a kill, like between Omni Purification, so we can't get a stun, and PL, like, Doppel walking out, so we can't do anything. Focusing on like getting better trades off with your E is good. That does kind of hamstring you a bit, because you can't get your sprint until level 4 at that point, so you have to have a lot of foresight to be like, okay, like, this skill would be better right now, but like, will I be able to get my other skill in time? And I think the answer would have been yeah for us, but definitely things to think about. Dude, the bash I think would have made the lane go a lot more aggressive.
yeah, I'd be a little hesitant to do like bash level 2 just because I feel like if they went on you hardcore without sprint, you'd struggle to get away from Omni PL because Omni would slow you, PL would slow you. But I mean, I don't know. Especially with the Dazzle, it's pretty fine. Like realistically, you're okay.
I mean, I think would have been fine. And if you're running an aggro dual lane as like Slardar Dazzle against another dual lane, and you're like worried about them going on you, I feel like you already lost.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with how the lane went. Like obviously the game was terrible, but the lane is the thing of the lane detached from the game. It went pretty well. Like I'd be open to running it again, maybe with some alterations to our play style, but I think it definitely has a lot of potential. And I could see it working in the future.
I would agree.
So, any closing thoughts you got before I do the plugs?
I think we're all set. Game wasn't good, but we did what we could. That rhymed also, just in case anyone wasn't picking up on that. Dazzle going for Glimmer Cape, I think, was probably the way to go. It seemed good. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, against the guys we were going, the Glimmer Cape seemed like a pretty smart idea. Yeah,
I mean, that's really all you can ask is like, we did our best, and like, all things considered, I think we did pretty well, but realistically, 2 people doing well is not 5 people doing well, so.
Certainly true.
All right, well, to do our plugs, I'm at Ursinity on Twitter. You're at Proud Dota, no hyphens or anything, right?
That is correct. Proud with the D, and then Dota with the D, so it's 2 Ds.
Yeah, not Proud Dota.
Proud Dota. Yeah, I like that. No, I don't. Okay, no, Proud Dota. There we go.
Yeah, easy. Proud Dota definitely sounds better. The other one sounds like a medical disorder.
Proud Dota.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll stop.
See your doctor if you have Proud Dota. And you can find the .p show Twitter at .p_show. Twitter, definitely my easiest venue of communication. The other good venue of communication would be our subreddit, r/Defense of the Patients. That's a good way to get in touch with us, to just have conversations. It's the way to do it. You could email us at defenseofthepatients@gmail.com. You can also view the VOD from tonight in addition to many other videos on our YouTube channel, .ptv1. Of course, you can find the podcast you are currently listening to on all of your favorite podcast apps and defenseofthepatients.com. That's about it, I think, right?
Sure, whatever.
Yeah, sure, whatever. And all right, so I have been Ursinity, and this has been Proud, and this altogether has been Theorycrafting Thursday. Thanks for listening, and remember, it's our theory, but it's probably your fault.